welcome to Backpacker Radio, presented by The Trek. I am your co-host, Zach Badger Davis, and sitting across from me is not Chance. Sitting across from me today is...
Smiles.
Kayla
Murchison.
Tell us a little bit about yourself, Kayla.
I have been hiking through hikes. Back in 2012 is when I first did the PCT, the Pacific Crest Trail. And then I did the Continental Divide Trail in 2014 and the Arizona Trail in 2017. I've also done a few stints as a wilderness ranger, one in Alaska, Wrangell St. Elias National Park, one in the Wind River Range, the Bridger Teton National Forest, and then one in Mount Rainier in Washington State.
I have so many follow-up questions based on what you said, but I first want to dig into, because this is interesting to me. You said this to me at a couple of hiker meetups, that you hated the CDT.
Yes.
Why? What did you hate about the CDT?
There are many reasons. I like to be truthful about it because I feel that there are a lot of people that might feel this way but don't really want to communicate it. And I think also a lot of people have like a hard time on it but never communicate that to other hikers as well.
Right.
Yeah, so, it's not like one thing. It's like all the things that happen on that trail that kind of build up. And I think, the crew that you're hiking with can really bring you up or bring you down. Lots of issues like that. But I think the biggest thing for me is on the CDT, people, I feel what gets communicated is people say, oh, it's really hard. Mm-hmm. But I feel that it's different than just really hard. It's actually risky.
Mm. In what ways?
Just for instance, like I went northbound. Mm-hmm. First of all, I feel that the CDT is probably better as a southbound trail.
I've talked to a lot of people that have corroborated that recently.
Yeah.
If I were to thru-hike it, and I'm thinking about it, although maybe not after this conversation, I would definitely go southbound.
I think that's the way to go. Uh-huh. I think that's the way the terrain lends itself to. I think as thru-hikers, we're so used to just feeling really like strong and just, plowing through a section of terrain. And, sure, like lots of people say, oh, that's really hard or you shouldn't do that. And we can just get away with it because we're thru-hikers and we know how to do this. On the CDT, you got to let the mountains tell you what you're going to do. You're not going to go in there and, make the CDT your bitch. Like it will tell you what to do or what not to do, and it's going to humble you. So I think it's better for people to start off humble on that trail to avoid feeling that mental crash
sure.
when they're out there.
No, and I asked specifically because I think that is an important disclosure to offer to people because, not all the trails are the same. They're very, like the difference between the AT and the CDT is almost night and day. They're very different trails. So it's good to get your honest experience. And I'm actually really impressed that didn't scare you away from backpacking in general.
It was hard.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I love the wilderness. I love it. It's where I feel at home, as I'm sure a lot of people can relate to that. Mm-hmm. That's where I want to be. Whether that's through hiking or not, maybe not. I love through hiking. Mm-hmm. I think because I had such good other experiences, I'm not going to stop. Just because of CDT, I had a hard time on that trail.
Yeah.
But I don't know if I'll do the CDT again.
Yeah, sure. So the other thing I'm really impressed is that you finished the trail.
Yeah.
Despite at what point were you not enjoying that experience?
It is, and that is interesting to me because I felt the whole time you keep pushing it forward in your mind, like, okay, it's bad now, but it's gonna get better.
Right.
It's bad now, and then there's only so many months that you can do that for until you're like, wait, it's not getting better.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I'm curious, then why did you continue with the trail?
Yeah, so I got to a point. I also, I feel also on this trail, there's a lot of room for things to go differently for each hiker each year.
Right.
Whereas like on the PCT or the AT, everyone might have a general experience, the same experience, but on the CDT, it could be very vast. So I feel like...
Is this because there's different routes or because the weather is so variant year to year? What do you attribute that
yes.
to? All of the above. Okay.
Yeah, the weather, the routes, the people out there are different than who you're going to find on the AT usually.
Yeah.
Multiple things. That's the thing about the CT. It's you can't really pinpoint. It's like multiple things, like watch out for avalanches, river crossings. I had to rescue a friend from hypothermia. Et cetera, et cetera. Mm-hmm. And I also, maybe I just had more of these experiences than, say, I had some friends that hiked in 2013. They didn't even use their ice axes. They were telling me, oh, Smiles, you're going to love it. Right. And I'm like, I want to love it. And that's maybe a part of the mental game too, why I kept going. There is such beautiful land here. The thing to me, it's not the CDT, but rather me as a thru hiker, what I did on that land, which is to thru hike it. So I think there's ways to do that, holding respect for the land.
Yeah.
Because the land will not respect you.
Right. Well said. Well said. I mean, yeah, the trail, any trail can chew you up and spit you out. That's capable. That can happen on any trail in the country. But I don't want to harp too much on the one negative experience that you had, but I do think it is important to share that story. And it was also interesting that, one, you disliked it so much and that you actually persevered through that. Yeah. I was really impressed by that. So if you could go back, would you not do the trail at all, or are you happy that you had that experience?
I used to say that I regret thru hiking it because I love the land more than I love thru hiking. Mm-hmm. So there's many people thru hiking for different reasons, and the CDT will very much solidify that in a person. So there's a lot of people that just want to hike it to say that they did it or thru hike it, which is awesome, and it is an amazing feat, and I get that. But my goal is to more just love the mountains and the terrain where I'm at, and thru hiking for me is a good way to do that.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
We could honestly make an entire show talking about your experiences as a backpacker, but you're serving as my co-host today, so I'm going to ask you one more brief question before we get into more of like a rapid fire type question series here.
Okay.
What did it take for you to get your jobs as a backcountry ranger?
Yeah, so actually they've all been volunteer. Because it is really competitive, which is funny because it doesn't pay anything.
Right. It is the dream job that doesn't pay very well.
Exactly. Yeah. So a lot of people, in order to get into it, unless you have like a fire science degree or something, a lot of people have to volunteer. It's just the entryway into it. So I did that a few times, and then I just kept doing it because I was trying to figure out a more sustainable way to be in the wilderness than just taking off and thru hiking.
Right. Will they accept anyone as a volunteer, or is there still a process in order to be accepted as a volunteer ranger?
There is a big process. I think my thru hiking helped with that.
Yeah.
And some of the places were like for instance, the one in the Winds, I think they liked me because I had a lot of experiences after I did the CDT, and I was also a woman. I think that kind of helped a little bit. But I did have a lot of experience as well. But like my first one, I actually came straight from an office, like a cubicle, and I think my boss was just overwhelmed. He was doing like 2 different jobs at the park in Mount Rainier, and I infiltrated him with like 10 different letters of recommendation.
He couldn't say no.
He was like, oh, okay, she might be okay, I guess.
You made him an offer he couldn't refuse. Yeah. Cool. So this is kind of rapid fire, but it'll take a little bit of elaboration. The first is, how did you get your trail name, Smiles?
You can't see it in Radioland, but I got it like day 3 of the PCT. They were just like, this girl's always smiling. And a lot of people where I camped, they could say, I always know where Smiles is camping because you can just hear the laughter over that ridge over there in that camp.
Your current big 3, if you've got like a go-to for a 3-season long distance trip.
Where I want to go?
No, a big 3 in terms of backpack, shelter, and sleeping bag.
Oh, yeah.
I know there's variance depending on where you're going, but...
Yeah. I mean, I can tell you what I use. I'm not super gear intensive.
Our guest will take care of that portion of it.
Yeah, but I love my ULA. I started with the Catalyst, which is a little bit bigger, and I use the Circuit now. I'm not like crazy light, but I'm just average lightweight, I guess.
Yeah, average lightweight. There's now degrees of lightweight.
Yeah, I love my, I have my Big Agnes UL Fly Creek one. That thing has been through so much.
It's a great tent.
I'm shocked. I like trust it with my life now.
Yeah.
Like, I've seen what you can do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like the Neo Air. It's very comfy.
What about sleeping bag or quilt?
I do a sleeping bag.
What do you use?
I just have my Phantom, my Mountain Hardwear Phantom 15.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Your current dream hike?
My dream hike. For a long time, before I even thought about through hiking, I just really want to do the Annapurna Circuit in Nepal. I mean, I know it's like one person called it the Coca-Cola Trail. It's like, the trail that all the tourists do or whatever, but it's just been on my mind for so long that I want to go do it. At some point, I will do it,
Last one is a would you rather. This comes from at P_Ansky. I'm probably butchering the pronunciation on Instagram. Would you rather wipe with your only pair of socks or debris from the desert ground?
Oh, debris.
Got to keep clean socks. What would you even use? You'd have to like mash up tumbleweed or something.
There's a lot in the desert.
Is there? I guess it depends on the desert. I don't know. Nothing's jumping out at me on the PCT that would work. All I remember is the thorny bushes, and I'm definitely not using it.
Yeah. I guess I've walked from the Mexican border like 3 times now, and it's like about 800 miles each time through the desert, and they're all different. Southern California, New Mexico, and Arizona, totally different. So.
Okay, you're off the hot seat. Now we're going to get to our interview with the one, the only, Mr. Andrew Skurka. So we are here with today's guest, a man who needs no introduction, but I'm still going to make him do it anyway, Mr. Andrew Skurka. Thanks for being here. Thank you honestly so much. Driving through the snow means a lot.
Well, the roads weren't as bad as I thought they might have been, but thanks for having me.
So we're going to get to your backpacking resume here in a second. I want to go before that because I hear so much about you as the backpacker adventurer. Would you even refer to yourself as a backpacker? Like what's the term?
I mean, I actually almost get insulted when someone's like, "Oh, meet Andrew. He's a professional hiker." I actually find it like almost insulting because like that's just. I mean, I just, like yourself. I mean, I've got my hands on a lot of things, and I don't make any kind of living off of just hiking.
Yeah.
So, and it's not something actually that I spend the bulk of my time doing either, which is unfortunate, but the reality.
There's got to be a situation where you're at a party and you have to introduce yourself. I'm Andrew Skurka and I do X.
Well, they say, well, they say, well, what do you do? I say, well, I'm self-employed.
There
like, oh, so what do you do? And I say, well, I have my hands in a bunch of things. I guide trips and I develop content and I do some consulting.
Yeah.
And I just sort of leave it at that.
Yeah. If I were you, I'd say, have you heard of The World? Because I've walked it.
I try to keep the ego in check.
Oh, not me.
Yeah.
So like I was saying, tell us a little bit about young Andrew's life. Like tell me about your childhood. Yeah, the day you were born, the hospital.
No, we're gonna go way back. Okay, so I grew up in southeastern Mass.
Okay.
I grew up in a family, like good family, upper middle class, maybe middle class. We didn't have great outdoor access, so it was like a big deal in the summer when we would go up to New Hampshire, Maine, Vermont, and it was always something that really clicked once I was up there, but it was just too hard to like get up there, especially since I was running track and cross country throughout high school, so those weekends were sort of consumed. And my parents had no like outdoor skill set, so it's not like we were driving up to like New Hampshire and like jumping into canoes and doing some river or something. Got into college, and I
saw you went to Duke?
I did go to Duke.
Are you a basketball fan? Is it sacrilegious to say no?
Actually, every once in a while, I'll like see how they're doing, and then like I was just on YouTube the other day watching Zion Williamson.
I was about to ask
oh my
about
God,
him.
he's like,
he's insane.
He is crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, I just watching someone who's 285 pounds and 18 years old move like that is crazy.
He's a generational talent.
Yeah. But he needs a new pair of shoes. So
he ripped through shoes in a game recently.
Oh.
Yeah, like 30 seconds in, ripped through like it looked like the upper delaminated from the outsole.
How do you even do that?
Well, no, it was just I assumed that they were kind of prototype shoes or something.
Oh,
and,
Nike stock dropped $1 billion in value.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I believe that's nuts. Yeah, and you know what the great irony of that is? He's not getting paid a cent.
I know. Because it was very close to tearing a ligament, and you're out of basketball for 18 months at that point.
Yeah. So I went to Duke, and when I went there, I was like fully expecting that I would do like consulting or investment banking afterwards, or probably not law school. That wasn't of great interest to me, or maybe like work in DC doing some sort of like something. And I decided my first summer when I was in college that I was like, you know what, like I've got this rare chance where like why don't I go do something fun this summer, because I'll probably spend the rest of my life under fluorescent lights. And I went out to Western North Carolina. I worked at a summer camp, and like every day I was rock climbing, mountain biking, and caving, and rafting, and trail running before the kids would get up in the morning. And it was just awesome. Like I was having so much fun, and not only was I having so much fun, but I was also hanging out with all of these basically like dirtbag camp counselors. And I was like, wait a minute, let me get this right. So you work here in the summer for like 3 months, and then you drive your van to Joshua Tree and like live there for like another 3 months, and then you like go pick apples on this orchard in Arizona, and like you don't have to pay rent because you're picking the apples. Like it was just wild. Like it was just totally this like different lifestyle than versus how I grew up, which was the expectation was you'll go to college, you will get your degree, you will get a job, you will get married, you'll buy a house, you'll have children. Mm-hmm. Like you retire at 65, and then maybe you can have some fun at that point. Mm-hmm. So that was just a eye-opening experience, like the whole thing. And I describe it as like the most corrupting experience of my life, because it was kind of all it was like a tussle for multiple years after that, trying to fight sort of those expectations with what I really wanted to do. And it took a while for me to just embrace and say like, well, this is what I want to do. I'm going to do it. And like, you guys no longer get to dictate what like my life decisions.
Do you have siblings?
I do. I've got an older sister and younger sister, and they've both taken much more conventional paths. They both have 2 children apiece, so my mom is like super happy and doesn't bug me and my wife.
They take the burden off of you. That's nice. Yeah. So then, so you did the camp counselor thing. Mm-hmm. What was your entry into backpacking?
I did the Appalachian Trail. I was still in college, so I took I kind of delayed a semester so I could have like an extra summer, and I went and hiked the Appalachian Trail. This was in 2002, and I did it in 95 days, which was like, oh my gosh, someone did the Appalachian Trail in 90. And like nowadays, it's not a big deal at all.
What was the fastest known time at that point?
Probably in the 50s or 60s, high 50s, 60s. I mean, it was not. Yeah, no, it wasn't a big deal.
What were you doing for gear research in 2002?
It was terrible. I remember being on these forums, and there was like lightweight backpacking just started. Like Go Light was founded in 1999, so like Go Light was 3 years old. People are like just making gear in their basements and like or their garages or wherever. And there was kind of this still at the time it was not an accepted style. It was so there was a lot of pushback against it, saying, well, that's not the way backpacking should be done. Like, you should, everyone should have lots of stuff.
There's still remnants of that today.
There is, but not, it's now accepted. Right. And in fact, not even accepted, it's expected.
Yeah.
Like if you step on the Appalachian Trail, the Pacific Crest Trail, and you have 50 pounds of stuff, if you look like you just walked out of REI, people will think you're an idiot.
Right.
Whereas that was the norm when I did the Appalachian Trail in 2002. Mm-hmm. Huh. I started. I had I don't know how much my pack weighed. That welcome center down at Amicalola Falls was closed when I walked through there in the morning. It was still dark, but it was really heavy. I just remember just being like destroyed by the first couple of days of like just this endless up and down with this heavy pack.
Yeah. What pack did you use?
I had a Mountain Smith Frostfire 4500. Uh-huh. Which weighs 7 pounds empty. Wow. But there was there was no like there was no good gear at that time. So
Yeah.
like I remember meeting there's these two guys that were called their names were the Trees, and they were like, I think they were friends or brothers, and they both were like 6'4" and really gangly, which is why they were called the Trees. And they both had Go Light packs. They were the first guys I'd ever seen with Go Light packs. Like I had heard that they were coming because there were other people on the trail like, oh, those guys have Go Light packs, but those like their packs didn't even have side pockets or any hip belt pockets.
Yeah.
So like that's, which is not a user friendly design, right? So I mean, the gear was just wasn't great back then. So it was hard to. I mean, it was coming along, but it was. I think by the time I got to Maine, I had like figured out a lot of stuff. But thru-hikers are so lucky nowadays with what's out there. I mean, there's so many. There are like 10 packs that I can think of off the top of my head where you'd be really happy with it.
Andrew Skurka's 10 best packs. A little inside joke.
I feel like it's advancing really quickly too. Not so much.
No, I think that the evolution of gear is pretty incremental at this point. I don't think you see a lot of people like really making like massive improvements in gear. There are a couple of like, for example, like a breakthrough was like Cuban fiber or titanium composite fabric. That was a real breakthrough fabric because it dropped overnight. It dropped shelter weights by 1/3 to 50%. Overnight.
Yeah, right.
Overnight.
And now Big Agnes is getting in that game.
Right.
Yeah, we'll see.
We need to go there now.
Well, so I'm just worried for them that they're using the 0.3 ounce dynamic composite fabric. So
it's too light.
It's the lightest. Yeah. So I think I'm nervous that they're gonna have like seam issues and
interesting.
Yeah. Abrasion issues. Like I mean that 0.3 fabric. Mountain Laurel designs won't use it. Z-Packs won't use it. So if they won't use it,
you think they're using it because it's lighter, because it's cheaper?
I don't know. I'd have to. I didn't ask them that question.
Yeah.
I hope that it's not because they didn't do enough product testing.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Don't want to deviate too much here. So you hiked the AT 2002. Did you get a trail name?
Paul Revere.
Paul Revere. Is that well known?
No.
Okay, I was going to say.
because I dropped it for my next big trip, which was that C2C route trip. So 2004, 2005, I walked 7,800 miles from Quebec to Washington, and I wasn't following, like, I followed the International Appalachian Trail and then the Appalachian Trail down to the Long Trail. But then I left the Long Trail and I went into upstate New York, and I walked basically along every state that borders Canada plus Ohio, all the way to the Pacific Ocean. And for the rest of the trip, there's no thru-hiker culture. And when I was wherever I was, it didn't matter if I was in like southern Ohio or if I was like walking through the eastern plains of Montana or if I was in some mountain town in the Northwest. I wasn't going to walk up and introduce myself as Paul Revere. I was going to say, hey, my name's Andrew.
They might think you're really crazy then.
Right. Yeah. And that's actually when I started like staying clean shaven too, just as an appearance thing. I just
did you hike with a razor
Makes
then?
sense.
I would have one sent out in my drops.
How did you get the trail name Paul Revere?
Some guy thought there was enough of a association between me being from Massachusetts and being kind of fast to suggest Paul Revere.
Got you. So you weren't in love with the name,
great.
So it was easy for you to ditch.
Yeah,
I get it.
Yeah.
So you kind of answered my next question. You didn't follow the typical thru-hiker trajectory of doing the PCT next and then the CDT. You did the C2C route, and you did outline that already. How did that become the plan for the next hike?
I read a magazine in Backpacker, or I'm sorry, an article in Backpacker magazine when Backpacker magazine was like the only source of backpacking information. That and like sometimes an Outside and sometimes maybe in like a men's journal. But like Backpacker was like it. There was no The Trek. There was no Section Hiker. There was no AndrewSkurka.com.
Yeah.
So there was an article in which they were kind of pitching the idea of connecting a bunch of existing long distance hiking trails to go all the way across. And I was using some trails that like I had never even heard of before. So like there's the North Country National Scenic Trail, the Pacific Northwest Trail. Like these were not on people's radar at all. Yeah. Like the Pacific Northwest Trail, when I did it in 2005. So it was the spring of 2005. I think that there've been like 2 thru-hikers of the entire trail up to that point. And nowadays, like there's like I think there's an app for it.
Yeah. Right. So I'm really interested by the fact that you decided to take on something so difficult after doing the AT, because I think the reason people go AT, PCT, CDT is because it's incremental difficulty, and you decided to skip 10 steps and go to the C2C route.
Let's see. What did I want? Maybe I wasn't like enthused enough about like just that. I needed a little bit more increment between steps.
So what was your experience in route finding and like everything that you'd need to accomplish something like the C2C route up until that point?
So I was pretty good through Ohio. So that was like November. And then the winter was a big learning experience because I snowshoed, what was the number? 1,300 miles through Michigan, Wisconsin, Minnesota in the first 3 months of 2005. And temperatures down to 20 below zero, and like daytime highs that never exceeded they were like stayed in the single digits or like maybe the teens. So that was a big like learning period where
I'm from the Midwest. I'm very familiar with what you're talking about.
Yeah, it's continental weather. It stays cold. And, so I remember like I just didn't and I made lots of mistakes. I mean, I still it's a good thing I was young and dumb because there are some things looking back at, I was just like, I couldn't tolerate that now. So like, I didn't have a pair of insulated pants.
Oh man.
Yeah, I know.
What were you hiking in?
Well, you wouldn't hike in insulated pants anyway, but you'd want them for camp, right? So I had, let's see, I was wearing a pair of, I think I had a pair of compression shorts, and then a pair of wind blocking legging, like soft shell pants over that, kind of an athletic fitting pant. And that actually was pretty good. Like that, I thought that system was pretty good. But then, if I ever stopped or in camp, and the camp, there's 12, 14 hours of darkness in January in Michigan. Yeah. So I was okay in my sleeping bag because I had a really nice Western mountaineering bag rated to maybe 5 or 5 below. I don't remember what the number was.
And that was sufficient for negative 20 degree
Well,
temperatures?
you push it because you've got all your clothing and stuff. No, there's still a couple of pretty cold nights.
Yeah.
But I just didn't have things figured out. So for example, I didn't have vapor barriers figured out. So I would be in my sleeping bag, but all night long you're still perspiring, just slightly. Yeah. But over the course of 3, 4, 5 days, that moisture gets trapped in your bag. And your bag, it's a down bag. It starts really losing its loft. So I was fortunate, basically the North Country Trail Association was passing me along from town to town, and basically this volunteer network. And they thought I was I was 22, 23 years old. And everyone could look at me and go that could be my son, that could be my nephew, that could be my grandson. And they were just awesome about just hooking me up with places to stay and just kind of letting me get out of the cold maybe twice a week.
Can you go a little bit more into vapor barriers? Because this is something that we haven't, a rabbit hole that we haven't even just explored on the podcast.
Yeah, so the basic idea with a vapor barrier liner, it can be a next to the skin layer, but it's really better as a one layer outside of your base layers. It's a completely non-breathable layer. So it could be made out of tent fabric. It could be made out of sil nylon. It could be made out of denim composite fabric, something that does not breathe. And the idea is that you trap the moisture inside the system, which does two things. It prevents evaporative heat loss because as you're perspiring, the whole point of perspiration is that you cool down your skin, right? So which you don't want if it's 10 degrees out. So you stop the evaporative heat loss, but the bigger thing is that you preserve all of the layers outside that system. So your down sleeping bag, your down parka, your puffy pants. So you're not getting moisture in those outer layers, which compromise them.
So when did, I'm kind of jumping all over the place, but when did the winter portion of the C2C hike end for you?
Somewhere in the middle of March, end of March. It stayed kind of cold and wet.
I mean, geographically, where were you?
Ely, Minnesota.
Okay. And so tell us about the rest of the hike from that point.
Ely, Minnesota. So then from after I get out of Ely, I was on, I think I sent my snowshoes home pretty shortly thereafter because the trail, the quote trail, faded to country roads just because there wasn't much of a trail west of Ely. And then I got into western North Dakota. I kind of hit spring somewhere in North Dakota. And then I walked across eastern Montana and got up into the Continental Divide and then followed the Pacific Northwest Trail all the way across.
Gotcha.
From Glacier out. And it was thankfully, I was quite a bit ahead of schedule. I was probably a month ahead of schedule. And thankfully it was been a dry winter. So I was in Glacier at the end of May, which is that's crazy early.
Yeah. There's still a ton of snow up there.
There should be. There wasn't as much as there should have been. So I just got lucky but that's the way it works sometimes.
And at that point, did you know that you were hooked in this world? Or was it after the AT?
Yeah, I don't know. I think I was just taking it kind of one trip at a time. I was I had no idea where it was going to take me. Yeah. And as anyone will tell you, you can't do something like that with any intention besides just having an experience.
Sure.
Like there's too much suffering.
Yeah.
I like that attitude.
It's just too monumental of an effort. There's so many easier ways to get a job or to become famous than to do a long trail.
Yeah.
To make yourself suffer. Well, speaking of suffer, so then unless I'm mistaken, your next hike was the Alaska Yukon expedition?
No, you missed one.
Oh.
There are a couple of small ones in between here, but yeah, the next big one was the Great Western Loop.
Great Western Loop,
It was
okay.
6,875 miles around the American West.
Yeah.
Which this past year was duplicated finally for the first time.
By legend.
I believe so, yes.
Yeah, he's one of our early guests on the show. He's a crazy motherfucker.
Yeah. I guess we can swear on this podcast?
Fuck yeah.
All right.
So I'm going to have him on, so I'll let him... We've got so much to talk about that I'm going to let him go down that rabbit hole. You're the one that pioneered that, and he's the second person ever to do that. And I think he mentioned to me that he ended up doing it in the exact same number of days as you. Not intentionally, but he was really proud of that fact.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, the hard... So I look back at that trip as being my sort of like pinnacle achievement as an on-trail thru-hiker. Mm-hmm. Like I look back at that and go like, I still look at so I averaged 33 miles a day for 208 days, and it took 7 days off. That's it. So there's just a crazy amount of volume.
Yeah.
I mean, that's like in an average week, I was throwing down like 230 miles a week.
What does that do to your body?
I don't know. I was 27, and I thought it was just, I got really leaned out, and I was super strong, but I could handle it.
Okay. Would you describe yourself as physically gifted?
Yeah, I'm a natural athlete.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been running since I've been 14. And
yeah.
I mean, I ran a 2:28 marathon, so yeah. Yeah.
If there was a barf bucket, I would fill it right now.
Yeah. So, and that's what makes that trip so hard, because you have to push. I think the natural direction to do it is you go clockwise. So you go up through the High Sierra in the spring, which tends to have a more consolidated snowpack. Mm-hmm. So you push up through as early as you can, and then you haul ass all the way up to Canada and over to the Rockies, and then down, and you try to kick out of Colorado before the end of September. Because if you're hanging out in Colorado at 11, 12, 13,000 feet in Colorado, just October can get pretty gross.
Yeah. So I'm curious, you're pushing so many miles on this trail, and I mean, obviously, since the get, you've been pushing big miles. To do the AT in 95 days, like you said, was unheard of. I mean, aside from the FKTs, have you ever had any interest in entering into the FKT world?
I've eyed them here and there, but it just doesn't. I don't know. The experience doesn't, at least, especially now, it just doesn't strike me as being a rich enough experience. Mm-hmm. Like if I'm gonna spend, say like, if I was like, oh, that Appalachian Trail FKT, that looks really interesting. So what's it up to right now? Like 38 days?
String Bean, I think, owns the supported, or the self-supported rather.
Yeah,
and actually, didn't he? So he
didn't
set
break 40 out. He didn't break.
No,
40
he was
days,
at 45. I want to say
45. Okay,
yeah.
So if I was like, 45 days. So then I was like, okay, so 45 days. Well, what else could I do in 45 days? Well, there are like 20 things that I'd rather do in 45 days than go try to set an FKT on the AT.
So it's an opportunity cost thing for you.
Yeah, because 45 days. Well, I could probably hike across the Brooks Range.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So perfect segue, right?
I mean, to me that sounds way more interesting.
Yeah. So tell us about this is the one that is the most baffling to me in a long resume of things that baffle me.
It's still baffling to me.
It's insane.
Yeah.
So it sounds like you came from a fairly normal upbringing. Were your parents shitting their pants when you told them what you were about to go do?
Yes.
Okay. Any other answer would have been confusing to me.
Well, yes and no. So on one hand, yes, that sounds, Andrew, that sounds like pretty dangerous. On the other hand, Andrew, this is the third really big trip you've done, and you're pretty dialed on this stuff now. Yeah. So
they trusted
and
you.
Also, you're an adult now. You're 20, or you're 20. I started when I was 28, so I finished when I was 29. I was 29 by the time I finished. So you're an adult. Make your own decisions.
Got you.
What about your extended family? Were they
Oh, they're much more supportive. Yeah.
Okay.
Because it's they don't have as much skin in the game. Yeah. So all my aunts and uncles, they were like, "That's awesome. We're gonna follow you on Facebook."
Nice.
Yeah.
When you go to family reunions, is everyone just asking about these hikes?
No, it's kind of normal now. And maybe at the time, don't really remember.
Yeah. Okay, so tell us about this, because this is insane.
Yeah, so the Alaska Yukon expedition was big trip number 3. It was in 2010. It was the last big trip I've done. It was 4,700 miles, started in March, finished in September. It was started on skis, and I skied, I want to say it was, let me think, 1,200 miles on skis. 400 of those miles were off trail through the Alaska Range. 800 miles was on like a snow machine trail. Like I did route trail mostly. And then spring arrived, picked up my pack raft, my hiking shoes, and went down to like basically Juneau, went north up into the Yukon, and then turned west and hiked all the way across the Brooks Range.
How much pack rafting experience did you have going into this?
I was okay on pack raft.
Okay.
Yeah, because I'd been up. So one of the things that, if you look at my history, typically where the pattern was and still kind of is, that I'll use maybe off years is maybe a good way to describe it, as an opportunity to get to an area that I haven't been to before, or in a season I haven't been in before, and to pick up some new skills and some local knowledge, and then come back again and do something bigger or do something complete. So what was happening is, like in 2009, I went to Alaska and I spent, I think I was there for like 6 or 8 weeks, and I did the Alaska Mountain Wilderness Classic, and I did like I don't remember how long, I think it was like an 800-mile trip from where I basically linked together a bunch of the Alaska Mountain Wilderness Classic lines. So I was kind of up there, and I had kind of a read on the landscape. And some of the other trips that I'd done, so like the skiing was new to me, but I had already kind of mastered the winter stuff during, so in early 2007, I did I call it Ultralight in the Nation's Icebox, where I went from Duluth, Minnesota to Ely in like the first 2 weeks of January. And I had like, so by the time I was done with that trip, I kind of had mastered cold weather camping. So I sort of took that skill, the cold weather skill. I've been up to Alaska, so I had that local knowledge. I've been pack rafting a bunch that summer prior in Alaska, so I kind of had the skill sets. It was just a matter of applying them.
Mm-hmm. When you're hiking in Duluth, Minnesota, are you enjoying this? Is this just something are you just pushing your limits?
Yeah, that was more of a pushing limits trip.
Okay.
Yeah. And then more recently, like that, I still kind of like put together like the off years where so like this summer was a good example where I spent about a week and a half scouting the Yosemite High route. And this is a route that I'd seen bits and pieces of. Like I'd been guiding trips there, I'd gone through on a couple of occasions, but it was just, I needed a week and a half to go do a bunch of sections of it together and like kind of like go check out some alternates. Mm-hmm. And then I was able to come back, and now I could go back this summer, I could do the whole thing through. Yeah. Just like, and the summer, so summer 2016 is similar, where I was up in the Indian Peaks. I was just doing like a bunch of weekend trips in the Indian Peaks trying to put together the Fifner Traverse. And then in 2017, I was able to thru-hike the whole thing. Mm-hmm. But it just kind of, you need to kind of like, with these really ambitious routes, you kind of need to scout it, develop the skill set, figure out what's going on, figure out kind of like what the timing would be, and then you go for it.
So putting aside the scouting portion of it, which I'm sure is very time consuming, how long does it take to prepare logistically for something like the Alaska trip? The
Alaska trip? That one, I spent like 6 months planning.
Damn.
And a lot of that was just figuring out where I was going to go.
Yeah.
I think the normal thru-hiking stuff, like where I'm going to send resupplies and stuff, or how, like what needs to go in resupply box, I had figured that out on earlier trips. But it was just a matter of figuring out the route, because you're basically looking at a blank map of Alaska and trying to like optimize your travel. Yeah. And also like balance that with places where you really want to go, like things you want to see.
Are you nervous before you're leaving for something like this?
Yeah. Yeah, super terrified.
So you're not like a total sociopath.
No, I was like, and like you're nervous the whole time. It was like 6. So I don't want to like belittle veterans, but I think it was the closest experience that I've ever had to what it might be like in war, where every day you wake up and you're really uncertain about what's going to happen.
Right.
You kind of, you need to do something, like you've been like given orders, so to speak.
Yeah.
But around any corner, it could be a grizzly bear. There could be like this river that's at flood stage. It's like Alaska's a really dynamic place, and you're traveling off trail, so you're not that. If you have a trail, you're like you're a layer removed from what you're like the landscape that you're in. Mm-hmm. So if you're like hiking on the Appalachian Trail, you have no idea probably how thick like some of the forest is like at the upper elevations of the Smokies or like in the White Mountains.
Right.
But if you try to hike off trail, you're like, oh my gosh, this is like a temperate rainforest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you thought about designing any sort of route that parallels the AT to give like a more intense
There's
experience?
not the corridor isn't there. Yeah. And not to mention, there's like I find, so if you are say in Colorado or California or Alaska, there's like joy of traveling off trail. It's like you can find like blissful cross-country routes and that are just like the greatest thing you've ever experienced. I can't think of too many times I've been bushwhacking in the Appalachians where I've been like, oh my gosh, this is so much better than following a trail.
Yeah, right.
It's actually just the opposite. It's like it's miserable and you don't see anything else.
Would you say that Alaska is the wildest place you've been? Or okay.
Yeah. And what's funny in Alaska is that it's scales of wilderness.
Yeah.
So the Brooks Range and actually, like not too many people talk about it because they're not familiar with it, but like northwestern Canada, like so Yukon territories, Northwest territories, that is really remote. I actually think that might be more remote than like the Brooks Range, because at least the Brooks Range, you could fly into Fairbanks. From Fairbanks, you fly over to Bettles. You fly to the Arctic Village, and you get a bush plane that drops you off. I don't know where you could really do that over in like the Northwest Territories. Like Dawson is a really small town. Fort McPherson, I mean, it's just a native village out in the tributary, like a out in the delta of the Peel River. So it's just. I was glad I didn't get hurt anywhere, but especially glad that I got out of Canada.
Yeah. Are you friends with Buck Coulter?
A little bit.
Have you seen
of him, but we've never met.
Got you. Have you seen his Brooks Range documentary?
I've actually never watched it.
It's really good.
I bet.
How much documenting do you do of? Because I guess you're is this still pre-iPhone at this point? Like, what kind of equipment would you have to take in order to document
this?
This
was 2010, so there were smartphones, but like I had a satellite phone. There wasn't. Yeah, I mean, I feel like old timer now, like with how the technology has changed. But there wasn't a two-way inReach.
Yeah. So you had reached a new level of insanity in terms of your expeditions after this hike.
Yeah.
Were you at a point like, where do I go from here? Because at that point you had kept leveling it up.
Yeah.
How do you decide what to do next?
So interesting. The question when I got back wasn't what trip do I next? It's like it was, what do I want to do with my life? Because before the Alaska trip, I felt like I was working pretty hard. But I was like hustling for everything, and I had like no certainty. So like I was still living out of like all my possessions could fit in like plastic totes. All those plastic totes could fit in my Pontiac Vibe. I was still using my parents' address in Massachusetts as a permanent address because I didn't have one.
Yeah.
I would rent like basically month to month in Boulder, and I would 6 months in, 6 months out, or whatever it was. And that was for my 20s. I mean, that was like a great way to go. But it got tiring. It just sort of like that sort of uncertainty, both the geographic uncertainty and the financial uncertainty.
Yeah.
So before I left, I said, I'm going to do this trip. I want to do this trip. When I get back, I'll see what opportunities there are. But if it's it's just kind of back to the old grind, I'm just going to go get a real job and just be done with it. And like I could still go, like I would get a job that would allow me to still do trips, but at least it would be like I'd be earning a reasonable wage instead of just feeling like it was a sustainable lifestyle.
Yeah. That must have been a difficult contrast to go from the Yukon expedition to getting a 9-to-5 job.
Well, it wasn't like I was putting my resume together. It was just an abstract thought of when I get back from Alaska, this is the decision you're going to have to make.
Yeah.
And thankfully, when I get back from Alaska, there was like a ton of interest in the trip. And so the first 2 years, 2011, 2012.
Is this when you won the National Geographic Adventure of the Year?
That was 2007. So that was for the Great Western Loop.
Gotcha.
But this is the trip that was in National Geographic magazine.
Uh-huh.
And I think even if a lot of people saw it from the magazine, I still get even a lot of people on my guided trips come and they're like, well, how did you first hear about me? And they say, well, I read about you in National Geographic magazine. So I won't discount that. But a lot of people just saw it somewhere and were just like baffled by this idea that like you would spend 6 months doing this loop around Alaska. And you guys just sounds totally wild. So I'm now 37, so I'm 8 years older, and I still look back at that trip and go like, wow, that was ballsy. You were in a different place in your life. I can't struggle. I kind of struggle to believe. I just imagine doing that right now.
So I guess that is my next question. Would you be able to do something? I know skill-wise you do, but like, do you have the bravado is not the best word. Insanity? I don't know.
No. so I'd have to restructure some things in life.
Yeah.
So like I'm married, I own a home. I've got a cat that I adore who's 15, and I'm not sure if he'd make it through another Alaska Yukon trip. And then I'm sort of partly wedded to, I'm now a small business owner. I run guided trips, and I don't know how I could kind of walk away from all those things right now.
Yeah. So before we turned on the mics, you were talking about your guided trips. I do want to go into this. Some of the guides you've got on here are some of the best backpackers in the country. You've got Anish, Stringbean. Who else am I leaving out? Mike Cleland?
Mike Cleland, Alan Dixon, Flying Brian Robinson.
Yeah.
Who else? Justin Simone, Paul Magnianti, Jessica Winters, aka Wildflower.
How many people do you get applying to do one of your trips just because they want to hang out with these people?
I don't know. I think the motivations for most people don't, like when I ask them on their application, what are your goals in this trip? They don't say, I want to meet Heather.
Yeah. They're smart enough to know to lie about that.
Yeah, maybe that's what's going on. Most people who come on the trips, it depends on the applicant, because we have a pretty big range of applicants. Anything from, well, I've never gone backpacking before. I've done day hikes and I've done car camping, but I want to get into backpacking and I don't really know where to start. I've got that all the way to, I could probably do the Yosemite High Route on my own, but I have more money than time, and I know that you plan awesome trips because I've already been on 4 of them. So I'm going to sign up for this, and you're going to tell me where to be and when and what gear to bring, and you're going to show up with 7 other great guys.
Yeah.
Or women.
You get a lot of repeat business?
Yeah, this year about 25% of our alumni.
That's the ultimate endorsement right there.
Yeah.
So someone listening to this that wants to get involved in one of your trips, just go to andrewskurka.com.
Yep. And
cool.
And while if anyone's like super excited, like, I'm going to do that this summer, I should just let me set expectations. So most of the trips are already full for the year. I do have spots still for intro level trips in West Virginia and in Colorado, but all of my 5-day and 7-day trips in Yosemite and Rocky Mountain National Park in Alaska are full. I do have wait lists, and some of the wait lists on some trips are thin, and inevitably I get cancellations, but the best time to apply for one of my guided trips is in January of every year when I open up registrations.
Cool. Are you able to disclose which wait lists are thin in case someone does want to squeeze in?
My wait lists in Colorado are thin, and my wait list for the intro level trip in California is thin, and the wait lists in Alaska are thin. But the Alaska also has a pretty high bar for folks who are interested. Cool.
Smiles, I don't want to be dominating all the questions. If you feel free to just bulldoze me at any point.
No worries.
Okay.
I was kind of wondering, well, you kind of answered it maybe, but I was wondering if you had ever considered doing any kind of expedition or routes in Antarctica.
I've looked at it briefly, but I've never started a spreadsheet for an Antarctic trip. How's that? That's the first step of any real trip. It starts with a spreadsheet.
How many draft spreadsheets do you have right now of trips that have gone unfulfilled?
No, I'm pretty. No, not too many. So I do keep a Google map of with some what are those little icons of
the drop pins?
Hey, the drop pins, these spots.
Yeah, sure.
yeah. But the truth is that there's so much stuff just in North America that I don't know. So I'll probably be doing this for another, maybe, let's see, I'm 37, so I've got another, say, 30 years. I don't know if I'll even exhaust all the things I want to do in North America.
Totally.
And a lot of these things are good enough to go back and do again.
Yeah.
So it's not I've been to the winds a half a dozen times, and I've done the Wind River High Route, so I'll never go back to the winds. Yeah, whatever, man. If I can get back to the winds this summer, I'd be psyched.
Yeah. So you mentioned that you've got 3 more decades of this. Is there any aspect of you that does this from a legacy standpoint, or is this just pure curiosity that you want to explore? Do you want to be known as the greatest adventurer? You don't care about that?
No, and I might have even kind of given up that mantle by getting married and buying a house and starting a small business. I mean, when you look at someone like Swami, I mean, he's just prolific.
Yeah.
And Justin, same way. He's just prolific.
Yeah.
I don't know if my life allows for that anymore.
So I was going to ask, how do you find time to find a wife in all of these pursuits?
So interestingly, I met my wife during the first slideshow I ever gave about my Alaska Yukon expedition. Yeah. Which is, I use that as like as a to like in arguments all the time. Like, well, you knew what you were signing up for.
Yeah, that's funny. So she local Colorado girl?
Grew up in Michigan, was out here in Denver.
Gotcha. Kind of just a bizarre tangent, but I hate bugs, so I have to ask this question. What were the worst mosquitoes you've ever encountered?
They were in the Arctic.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a pretty simple.
I mean that's kind of what I was.
Yes, no.
That's kind of what I was expecting. But I talked to Smiles, and she said that if you're in the winds in July, it's like basically you're just covered in a blanket of them.
Yeah, there are places in the U.S. So like the winds, Yellowstone, and like the High Sierra, the bugs, and actually even like the parts of the Cascade can be really buggy. I'm not sure that anything competes with like the Arctic for how bad the bugs are up there.
I could see that.
Yeah, because like in the Arctic, so in the summer you have 24 hours of daylight, and especially like out towards the coastal plain, you have like the best possible mosquito breeding ground every 5 feet. It's like a stagnant pool of water right here, 5 feet over, another stagnant pool of water. I mean, it's...
What is your mosquito system? Clothing, DEET?
Yeah, you better get that figured out. So if I know I'm going to be into like thick bugs, it's nylon trekking pants, and I don't think that they need to be treated. I think that if they're loose enough, that's fine. And then up top, if the bugs are bad enough, I go with a tightly woven nylon top, kind of like a safari-looking shirt, like a trekking shirt. Some people will say, but yeah, it looks like you're going on a safari in Africa. If the bugs aren't too bad, then I'll go with a lighter, like ideally a knit, like just a normal long sleeve top. But then I'll have it permethrin treated. And then I've got a hat with a neck drape on it, and I bring 2 head nets because they're pretty easy to lose and rip. And then, yeah, I think that's the system. You
mentioned permethrin treated. Do you do the at-home treatment or do you do the factory treatment?
No, I think if you're going to be in intense bugs, you need factory treatment. Yeah, it's going to stick to the fabric a lot better.
Yeah, insect shield.
Yeah. Insect shield is a branded permethrin treatment.
Do you ever have nightmares about the mosquitoes in the Arctic?
So the weird thing about the mosquitoes in the Arctic, when you can go multiple days where they're just full on all the time, because it's not like in the High Sierra, Colorado, where it gets too cold at night for them to go away. It's like, well, there's 24 hours of daylight, and like the daytime temperatures fluctuate, maybe 5-10 degrees. So yeah, you could be hearing like a constant high pitched whine in your ears for days. And
that's my hell. Yeah. You're describing my hell right now. Yeah. Taking a quick break to bring you a word from our sponsor, Greenbelly. In case you're not already familiar, Greenbelly is the maker of one of the most complete nutrition bars on the market. Their meals contain 650 calories each, more than 2.5 times the energy of a Cliff Bar. Think of them like cereal bars on steroids. Because Greenbelly meals are ready to eat, requiring no stove or cleanup, they make the perfect midday trail meal. Their meals are super light and made with wholesome ingredients with flavors like peanut apricot, dark chocolate banana, and mine and Chauncey's personal favorite, the cranberry almond. They taste great and are handmade fresh every week. Chauncey and I are both big fans of the texture of these bars. They're dense, but still soft. They're also not too sweet, which is a refreshing change of pace in the world of sugary meal replacement bars. The bars are great for long-distance treks, as the founder, Christopher Cage, is himself a thru-hiker. And good news for you, our wonderful Backpacker Radio listeners, you get an exclusive 10% discount site-wide at Greenbelly. Just use code TREK10, that's TREK 10, at checkout at their website, greenbelly.co. Don't wait, this deal is only good for a limited time. Okay, back to the show. You might have predicted this question, but I have to bring it up, the bear bagging thing.
Yeah.
So a long time ago, you wrote about this on your website, and it was
actually just in January.
Well, so I thought you had this on your website first, and then tell me if I'm wrong. Obviously, it sounds like maybe already I am, but you wrote it. It was a very well-received, fairly innocuous thing that I think most backpackers agreed with, and then I thought you repurposed it for outside, and there was like a bomb went off on the internet. Am I making this up?
Yeah, well, that's the difference. I mean, it's the same article that was on my site, and then outside.
Yeah.
So outside syndicates some of my content.
Right.
Yeah, and when they posted it, it seemed like it was a bomb that went off. Yeah, it was. I mean, here's the thing. So like, any criticism that I saw of, so for your listeners, you can find the article on my website or on Outside, but the basic argument is that bear hanging, which is like you taking a rock, throwing it into a tree, pulling on a rope, and hanging your food, that's just an outdated and ineffective technique for protecting your food. Today there are much better methods. You can use hard-sided bear canisters, you can use sacks, and then there are other options too, depending on the environment. So like in a lot of park-type areas, you're going to have permanent infrastructure like food lockers, or they put a horizontal crossbeam. So like in places like Yellowstone or Glacier. And then if you're in an area without bears, you can just do a simple rodent hang, so like a couple feet off the ground. You don't need to go throw it over a tree. And then in some areas, I think it's totally appropriate to sleep with your food. Mm-hmm. And I didn't read any criticism of that argument where the person had read the article and still disputed it.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people just said, how dare you recommend that you sleep with your food?
I saw,
and the reality is that there's a lot more nuance to it than that.
No, yeah. I saw several, especially Facebook is the place that you go to find people that are just commenting without any sort of information.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And I saw many comments that said that. I actually went to bat for you, and I was copying and pasting excerpts from the article to disprove what they were saying.
There were a few people who were doing that for me, so thank you for doing that.
Yeah. There's a point in the article where you say there's a lot of people that do it and don't talk about it, and you're being brave here by actually talking about it, because I am one of those people that most of the time sleeps with their food.
Oh my gosh! Yeah,
most
standard.
I sleep with my food.
Standard thru-hiker protocol to sleep with your food. Why is everyone so offended that I dare suggest that?
Yeah. So I just wanted to, alleviate some of the pressure that you're receiving on that, because I think it's something that's not talked about often that a lot of people do.
Yeah, and so I think, and it's a conversation where it should be qualified. So I think it's appropriate to sleep with your food if you're in an area where there are no bears. Mm-hmm. Maybe, depending on your risk tolerance, where there might be bears, but there are no known bear problems. Mm-hmm. Then I think it's okay to sleep with your food. There's two pieces. So if there are no bears, and if there are no mini bears, so like mice, squirrels, raccoons, you name them, it's okay to sleep with your food.
Yeah.
If you're in an area where there are mini bears or there are bears, I think then figure something else out, but just don't hang it in a tree, because I think that's irresponsible.
So a lot of people listening to this, I know, are very interested in both the Appalachian Trail and Pacific Crest Trail. What would you recommend specifically for those trails?
So the Appalachian Trail has a few areas where, and it's been a while since I've been in the AT, so the conditions might have changed. So that's kind of always one of the things I preface, like do some homework,
right?
Look at online trip reports.
Yeah.
If you have to, call the rangers. And
legal disclaimer, the decision that you make is on yours.
Yeah,
this is just as Andrew saying what he would do for himself.
So always do some homework. So familiarize yourself with the regulations and what's happening on the ground. And then, but on the Appalachian Trail, my understanding is that there are some places where the bears are still active. So like in the Smokies is an area that comes to mind. I know that there are a lot of bears in New Jersey. I don't hear about them causing a lot of problems, though.
Shenandoahs do.
So the Shenandoah bears. So, in those types of areas, then you have to have something figured out. And like in the Smokies, they have all the shelters basically fenced off with chain link fencing.
Yeah.
And in the Shenandoahs, they provide bear poles. So you take your food and you go stick it on a high bar. And if the park is providing you that infrastructure, that's probably a reason, because it's not inexpensive to put that infrastructure out there. They want you to use it. It's like in the High Sierra, like Sequoia Kings and Yosemite to a lesser degree. But Sequoia Kings has a number of permanent bear lockers or food lockers out in the backcountry. Mm-hmm. They put them there because they want you to use them.
And it's so easy.
Right. It does limit your flexibility. You probably still need to carry a canister. But so if the park provides infrastructure, use it. Or if the the Forest Service provides infrastructure, use it. And on the Appalachian Trail, that's kind of the case. On the Pacific Crest Trail.
Let me stop you there. So what about the sections between where the infrastructure is in place?
I think the normal protocol is to just hang it on a nail in the shelter and call it good. The biggest problem on the Appalachian Trail is not black bears. And it's definitely not grizzly bears, because there are no grizzly bears along the AT. Yeah. The biggest problem along the Appalachian Trail are all those mini bears.
Right.
I mean, the shelters are just full of mice.
Yeah.
So and they have no fear.
Yeah.
No fear. Yeah.
So would you recommend like a lop sack?
Yeah. So probably the best thing on the Appalachian Trail is to use. You can do one of two things. You can get. You can just do reliable rodent hangs every night. So that would be like a stuff sack with your food, and I think you probably would need some heavy duty fishing line, so that way they can't run down the line. because they'll do that. And then you should be good to go on that. You could also get an Ursac minor, which is critter proof, so they can't chew through the bag. Or a rat sack also works, and that's made out of like chainmail.
And would that advice also apply to the PCT?
PCT is a little different. So the PCT, I assume that there are rodent problems on a lot of the established sites now. And then through the High Sierra, I don't know I don't think that they make exceptions for through hikers, but you should probably have a canister in the High Sierra. I mean, the bears are really, really smart in the High Sierra. I think you're really risking it if you hang your food in the High Sierra. And that's one place where I absolutely will not sleep with my food.
Interesting.
Because, I mean, you hear, there are reports, I've actually was sent a document that detailed for like 5 years of bear-human incidents in Yosemite. And some of the bears are so unbelievably brazen. Like, they will walk into an occupied campsite. They will walk into the center of the log benches, and they will take a bag of trail mix off the log that is like the distance of me to this coffee cup.
Yeah, they get too acclimated to fear. They lose any sort of fear. That's what happens. Okay, let's shift gears a little bit. I want to talk about routes. What would you say is the most what's the correct term? Pioneered, invented is not the right word.
You piece together.
What would you say is the most popular route that you've pieced together?
Okay, there are, let's see, there are now at least 5, 6, maybe, I'm going to say at least 6 high routes, maybe even, and there's some that are, they're just, the opportunity is there, and some people are doing them, but no one has put together a sort of package of information that makes it convenient. So you have the Sierra High Route, that was the original, Steve Roper's High Route, put it together like in the early 80s, and didn't get much traffic until like the late 2000s, early 2010s, where like finally some people started doing it as a through hike. And I did it in 2008, and I thought it was like the coolest experience ever, because I was in these areas I'd been to before. So it starts in Sequoia Kings, the Middle Fork, goes all the way up through Yosemite, and you're paralleling the John Muir Trail the whole time. So paralleling the Pacific Crest Trail the whole time. But it is awesome. You don't have to deal with any of the traffic. You're in all these, and the off trail is so engaging. It's like there's no autopilot when you're on off trail. You are like so totally fully present. You can't take a step without thinking about it first.
Yeah. I was with Jabba through that section on the PCT, and he had done the high route the year before, and just the entire time he was talking about how much more he enjoyed the high route.
Yeah.
He's like, so we went here and there and there, and like pointing out every single spot. It got a little bit annoying. So, and now it makes me want to do it, but I wanted to punch him in the face.
I bet. Yeah. I mean, it's really hard for someone who's like aspiring to do the John Muir Trail, they're expecting it to be like the greatest experience of their life. And I say, well, like, truth be told, the John Muir Trail is really shitty through Yosemite National Park. If you take the John Muir Trail through Yosemite and think you've seen all of Yosemite, you're absolutely fooling yourself. You've seen, like, I wouldn't even put the John Muir Trail, I would not put a single mile of the John Muir Trail like in my top 20 favorite spots in Yosemite.
Interesting.
It's just like, I mean, you can go see the valley in a car.
Right.
You can go to Tuolumne Meadows in a car. The route from Yosemite Valley up to Tuolumne Meadows is so. You're in like basically red fir forest, and it opens up here and there like Cathedral Pass and stuff, but Cathedral Pass is like And then you hike out of the park up the Lyle Fork of the Tuolumne, and you go over Donahue Pass, which is like okay. There's one really nice spot in the upper Lyle Fork where you actually cross the Lyle Fork, and if you look upstream you can see Mount Lyle, and it's a really impressive sight. But that's like the only kind of like impressive part of the whole route. And if you wander off, like this Yosemite High Route that I put together last summer, and I've been writing the guide this winter. I mean, there's some stretches where it's like so the core route of the Yosemite High Route goes 94 miles from Grace Meadow to the Merced River at the base of Quartzite Peak, which is part of the Clark Range. It's 94 miles. It's 70% off trail. So, and you go like, I think they're like, I don't remember them out of like by heart, but like you basically you're going like anywhere from like 8 to 12 miles at a time off trail. So you have the park like basically to yourself the way it's been for eternity. and you're in all these remote pockets that no one really even knows about, because even the Pacific Crest Trail doesn't get to these areas.
Right.
So yeah, and you've got it to yourself, and it's just drop dead gorgeous. And but yeah, it's hard for someone, who's like, the Pacific Crest Trail, the John Muir Trail is going to be the best thing that they've ever done, and I'm just like,
So when someone
you're still missing out on a lot. Yeah.
I'm curious, when someone buys one of your guides, it includes the GPS information. What else is it?
It doesn't include GPS.
Oh, is it just the maps?
So I do have I include a very rudimentary GPS file or GPX file that identifies all the trailheads and basically just draws lines between major things, so you can download the maps onto your phone.
Gotcha.
But I don't want to give out the GPX track, because I don't want people. If you need to follow like a track, this is not the route for you.
You need to have some.
Yeah, and I also don't want to steal people's fun. I mean, part of the thrill of a high route is that you're off trail and you get to make all those decisions yourself. So you have to you're up at a pass. You have to figure out where the next pass is. You have to figure out the best line, the line of least resistance to get there. You have to look out and understand how different textures correspond with different rock, different surface types, and different colors, how much water is going to be in that meadow.
So there's a puzzle element to it.
It's a puzzle, yeah. I wouldn't,
Well, and to that, since your high routes are getting more and more popular, what advice would you have for a beginner backpacker or novice that is interested in one of your high routes?
So a beginner backpacker should not do one of these high routes. An intermediate backpacker certainly can do these high routes, and there are two ways to do it. One is to just undertake a section hike. So this Yosemite high route, I've put together 8 recommended section hikes that you could do. And so you could take on one of those. And the section hikes have less off-trail overall. I've rated them, so there are some that are extreme and they're just as difficult as any portion of the Yosemite high route, but then there are others that are moderate or just hard, a little bit more more suitable for people who want some off-trail travel but who don't want to do endless talus, or who don't want third-class scrambling.
Yeah.
So you can do a section. The other option is to just jump in with both feet and just undertake a through hike and just give yourself a couple of extra days. Just so you have some cushion.
How would you classify somebody, or how would you, if I'm out there and I want to do one, but I don't know if my skill level is at the level of doing one of those high routes, how would you recommend me thinking about my own skill level?
Err on the side of caution. Do a section hike and just give yourself enough time. But go out there and just kind of play with it and see how you do. The nice thing about the section hikes is that they start and finish at the same spot, and you can usually extend them or shorten them. So if you get out there and you're like, oh, I'm actually really good at this, and I'm covering more miles than I expected to, then you can add on another little section. Whereas if you're like, oh, I'm the worst navigator ever, and I don't remember from Boy Scouts how to use this compass.
Yeah.
Then you just you shortcut it.
It's just trial runs.
Yeah.
Yep.
So when you say it starts and ends at the same point, does that mean it's a loop hike?
It's a loop.
Okay.
Yeah, the section hikes are all loops.
Yeah.
And the nice thing about the Yosemite high route, you can actually do the whole thing as a loop. So if you this is what I did last summer. It's the most convenient through hike ever. And here's the thing about through hikes, or the thing about these high routes. They're I think that they're a great option for through hikers after they're done through hiking, because how many years in your life can you afford to take 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 months off?
Right.
And and you just kind of, that hits an expiration date.
Yeah.
So that these high routes are a great opportunity for you to go out there. You get into it's all awesome, instead of it being a week of awesome and then a week or maybe 2 weeks of
Yeah.
And then another week of awesome. So you kind of you just kind of eliminate all of those mediocre.
Awesome extract.
Awesome extract. Yeah, there you go. Yeah. Yeah. So it's all awesome all the time.
Yeah. Biggest bang for your buck kind of thing.
Yeah. And the routes are really natural. There's no, all these routes, I don't drag them on any longer than they have to be. Or it's not like I want to reach some arbitrary point. It's not like I'm I think that this route should go from this road to this road, or it's just no, the good stuff starts here and then the good stuff ends there, and that's where it will start and finish. And there's some logistical considerations. So as I was starting to say, the Yosemite high route, you can pull up to Tuolumne Meadows and you can hike like 50 miles out on the Pacific Crest Trail, or go through the Grand Canyon of the Tuolumne, and you get out to Grace Meadow at the northern park boundary. And then you start cutting back south, and you actually go right through Tuolumne Meadows again, so you can resupply after doing like 100 miles. And then you go into the southern part of the park, and that's like another 60 miles. And then you come back to your car, and you go back to the airport and drive home, or fly home. Yeah.
Logistically, it makes perfect sense.
Awesome. I mean, because you're talking earlier about the Sierra High Route.
Yeah.
And so the Sierra High Route, it starts in the Middle Fork of the Kings, and it finishes outside of Bridgeport, which are on the two different sides of the High Sierra. And like, I don't know, like logistically, it's a total nuisance. Getting to the South Fork is a nuisance. Bridgeport is easier because you have the Eastern Sierra Transit. But you can't like pull up a rental car and then just leave it there for 2 weeks and like leave a fresh set of clothes and a pair of flip flops.
Right. That's one of the things. That's part of the reason I like through hiking is like from the just like the logistics of the hike itself. It's so easy. You just get to the trail and then you're done when you get 6 months later or wherever it is.
Yeah, and like the logistics, you don't think about like if you have like an extra day of travel at the end or beginning of a through hike, no big deal. But like if you have 2 weeks of vacation, that extra day is a big deal.
So that's what I'm saying is like I've got a week that I'm trying to plan a hike with a buddy in June, and just like the process of like, do we rent a car? Do we drive down 2 cars? Like all that stuff is a nightmare.
Yeah.
To your point, yes. Let's shift gears to a subject that I think both Smiles and I are very interested in, is the Wind River High Route.
Yeah.
I'll let you start off with your questions, then I'll go into my selfish questions after.
Well, yeah, I mean, it looks amazing.
It is amazing. I mean, if anyone has ever spent any time in the winds, you're just like, why hadn't I heard about this place before?
Right, exactly. So there's many different routes, I guess, that can be considered.
Yeah, I mean, so there are two. So that's the wonderful thing about routes, right?
Yeah.
Is that like it's not official,
right?
So I think what makes a route popular is when someone produces a package of information that makes it not turnkey, but just like, okay, I think I can kind of handle all of this. Because so here's the way I explain it. So with the Yosemite High Route, I said, well, like there's 94 really high quality, like 90 world-class miles on the Yosemite High Route. There are 4 ways to get to the southern terminus of the Yosemite High Route. There are 8 ways to get to the northern terminus, and I don't really care how you get there. Like, it's up to you. But I think for the Yosemite High Route guide to be actionable, you need to like spell out all of those options. And you need to kind of provide that route description, tell people kind of like what the physical expectations are. And it's the same way with the Wind River High Route. So so I've put together a package. Alan Dixon and Don Wilson put together a package. But like someone else could come out and like put together another one. And but the key thing is that someone be able to download it and just print it out and look at it and like, okay, block out 2 weeks in July. Like, because that's when Skurka says to do it or whatever. And here are the logistics. Here's who to call to get the shuttle, or here's the hitchhiking that will be required. So I think the key thing is that you just formalize it, which is a little risky because it's supposed to be a route, and I don't want to I don't want anyone to lose that element of adventure, which is part of the reason why I don't provide a GPX track, because I'm just just kind of giving you some broad outlines and trying to steer you out of trouble.
Yeah.
But there are plenty of spots where like the route description is like sort of intentionally vague and cryptic because you'll figure it out when you get there.
Totally. When is the best time to do it, would you say?
The Wind River High Route?
Yeah.
August and September.
Yeah.
I think July. So July is going to be one of two things. You're going to either hit a lot of snow still, or it's going to be really buggy, or maybe even both.
Yeah.
That already answered one of my questions.
Yeah. I mean, the bugs can be managed, and actually, like this, like if there's still some snow, that actually can be advantageous because it covers up like talus fields.
Yeah.
Right.
But it can also get really tedious if it's just like endless amounts of snow.
I'm more worried about the mosquitoes.
Mosquitoes love you?
Yes.
Okay.
If I'm in a group of 5 people,
they're all on
80% of the mosquitoes are on me.
Yeah. So that would be tough for you. Then.
Okay. August then.
August, and September could be really nice. The thing about the winds, so the winds are at the high points are at Gannett Peak is there. It's 13,000 feet. It's the highest point in Wyoming. And I mean, they usually get like a snowstorm at the end of August.
Damn.
Yeah.
And then it goes back to being summer. But it's a short season there. I would say my general rule of thumb is I want all of my A-list trips in the Mountain West done by the middle of September. I never want to push anything into the end of September, just because all that it takes is 3-4 inches of snow on Talus before it gets really really tedious.
Yeah. And so I know with the Wind River High Route, it's almost like you created it to be kind of borderline where it like would push my technical skills, but it's not necessarily the most technical that you could get.
Yeah, I mean, you could get super technical on the winds. You can get super technical in all these places. I think the idea with a high route, so if it's a true backpacking high route, it needs to be a strong hiker should be able to complete it without any technical equipment. So no ropes, no climbing helmets. You might need crampons, you might need an ice axe, but I would say that's pretty standard mountain equipment anyway, even for backpacking. I mean, people on the Pacific Crest Trail are using crampons and an ice axe. So if you're doing a high route, I think that's reasonable too.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Are your other high routes similar in the type of?
Yeah. None of them require any technical climbing. So usually I draw the line at I don't love to get on class 3 a lot. I don't like to bombard people with class 3, but that's kind of the limit.
Great.
Yeah. But a lot of the passes, I don't. I know, people all summer long are cursing my name when they're doing these routes. They're like, fucking Skurka, right? You masochist. But I don't make these routes harder than they need to be. All the routes really, I want them to have a natural flow and for them never to feel contrived or stupid hard. I'm not going to send a high route up a peak or a pass just because it's there. That's just, they all need to kind of just follow the natural lines of least resistance.
Yeah. Is there a reason that when you were looking at the Wind River High Route, is there a reason that you stuck kind of to the east side of it?
Yeah, the logistics are easier. So if you start the Wind River High Route on the east side, you can, it's like a 2-hour hitch from Trail Lakes down to Bruce Bridge.
Yeah. Okay.
And you don't have to deal with a shuttle.
Okay.
And the shuttle, just getting to Big Sandy, I think from Pinedale is a 2-hour effort.
Yeah.
So it's a pretty significant. And then and Green River Lakes is way in there.
Yeah.
It's an hour and a half from Pinedale. So
totally.
you're basically spending 3/4 of a day.
Yeah. Okay.
Just to shuttle.
But it wasn't the terrain or anything that you were eyeballing so on the east side?
Well, I plotted the route where I thought it was best. And so I think one of the things, when I put together these high routes, I try, I probably have done all of the alternates at least once. Because what'll happen is I'm pretty good at reading maps, as you might imagine. And I can read the map and I can go well, this route looks good. And this route looks pretty good. And maybe even a third route. And in a place like the Winds, you have lots of options. So I'll go in there and maybe over the course of 2 years, in the case of the Winds, I was, so I basically had done that high route I did it 4 times four times before I was this is the route.
Wow.
Because you can't get in there just based purely on your interpretation of the map and say this is going to be the line. Because what happens is you get in there and you're like, oh, this sucks. This actually or even so here's a good example. So on my guided trips in Sequoia Kings, I had scouted out almost the entire Kings Canyon High Basin route. And there was this one sequence where it was 3 hard passes in a row. And when I was running guided trips, what happened is we would do 1 or 2 of those passes and then we would bounce and go back to something easy. And when I thru-hiked it, I went and did all 3, and even I was oh my God, this is just too much. I'm destroyed. So I, in our revise in the guide, it says, don't combine them all. Go, do this other thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The average hiker of the skill set required to do a high route, how many miles per day are they going to be doing through the Wind River High Route, for instance?
Horizontal mileage is completely irrelevant.
Yeah, okay.
Irrelevant.
Yeah.
The way to think about high routes is looking at how many vertical feet per day that you can gain and lose. Mm-hmm. So you can look at your, if you do the John Muir Trail in 7 days, well, that's great. But go ahead and tally up the amount of vertical that you did every day. And that will give you some sense for how many vertical you'll gain and lose on the high route. Because what happens is the John Muir Trail, it gains or loses, I think the number is 375 vertical feet per mile. The Yosemite high route gains and loses 650 vertical feet per mile. And the Kings Canyon High Basin route goes like 700 vertical feet per mile. Mm-hmm. So what happens is in every mile on the Kings Canyon High Basin route, you're climbing or descending twice as many vertical feet as you do on the Muir Trail.
Wow.
So it throws off your mileage so significantly that just the way to think about it is horizontal. And I've actually plotted it out where when I thru-hiked the Fifth Nurture River in 2017, after I got back and I mapped out like my vertical gain and loss per day, and it was basically like horizontal right across. Mm-hmm. And whereas if you map my mileage, it's like, one day is like 12 and the next day is like 20 and another day is 15 because depending on where you are on the route, the vertical gain and loss might not be consistent. Uh-huh. Some days are going to be a little bit easier than others.
Would you say it's important for people to understand that like vertical climbing is different on a trail versus like route finding and on the talus?
There's definitely there are kind of two elements to it. So when you're off trail, you're going to be slowed down by the uneven footing, and also if you're not a great navigator.
Sure.
But mostly it's a fitness issue. Okay. I think that probably 75% of your ability to take on vertical is your fitness, and not necessarily whether you're a good navigator.
Okay.
When you have someone who's super fit and like a really good navigator, it's like when I get on these routes, I have like the things memorized. I've just like, I don't know, I probably have looked at maps of the Front Range like 50 hours. Mm-hmm. Okay, so I know every drainage, every pass, and I could do the whole Fifth and Traverse forward and backward without looking at a map the whole time. Yeah. So when you have someone like that combined with like really high fitness, that's really where you rock and roll.
Uh-huh. We've already taken a lot of your time. I don't want to be too selfish with it. I'm going to ask one very...
we can keep going. I'm having fun.
Oh, okay.
I know your podcasts are supposed to be 45 minutes, but
I don't feel like
I do that.
I do that out of the interviewer's interest, not the listeners, because I know they're lapping this up.
My wife
now.
is over on Santa Fe doing some shopping. I doubt that she'll mind another half hour.
Cool. Well, there's more beer in the fridge. By the way, for the record, I'm the only one drinking right now, but that's neither here nor there. Here's a very selfish question. Mid-July, somewhere within a 12-hour driving distance from here, what's the ideal hike for you? And I'm asking purely selfishly. I have about a week and a half.
How much time have you spent in the Front Range?
I do a lot of local hikes in like Boulder and Golden. I'll be doing it with Jabba, so I don't have.
Do you go up to the Indian Peaks often? Or Rocky?
I've done some stuff over. I've done some stuff in Wilderness Peaks. Not a lot in Rocky Mountain National Park.
Okay, so there it is.
Is there like a dream? Like one hike?
Go do the Fifth Traverse. It's 97 miles. It runs from Berthoud Pass to Milner Pass. I recommend going south. So you start at Milner, which is in the park. This is where Trail Ridge Road crosses the Continental Divide.
Okay.
The reason you want to go south is because Rocky has their designated camping, or they do have some zones too, which is preferable, but you're on a set itinerary. Mm-hmm. So if you start at Milner, your itinerary is probably going to be more intact than if you're coming north. So because over the course of those first 60 miles, all it takes is for you to be off by like a half day, and you could kind of be thrown in Rocky. So you start at Milner, go south, and for the first 30 miles you're in Rocky Mountain National Park, and then after that it's mostly the Indian Peaks Wilderness, and then you jump into James Peak at the very end.
Sounds awesome.
So it's let's see, so it's 40% off trail. It's you might want to do a little bit of training because it's 800 vertical feet up and down per mile.
Yeah, I know. I'm still coming off ACL surgery, but I'm definitely planning on ramping up my training here. My biggest concern, so I did read about it a little bit on your website. It goes below 10,000 feet, twice in the entire...
Let's see, what is it? It's, you're pushing me a little bit. There's one spot...
maybe it was 4 times. It was...
No, I think it's twice. I think in East Inlet, and then again in... like Buchanan Creek, drop just below 10,000 feet twice.
So obviously July is monsoon season out here.
Well, I think that if you go so the nice thing about Colorado is that we don't have much of a bug season. Mm-hmm. So this year our snowpack is pretty. I think actually in this Front Range, I think it's just kind of about average. I have to look.
I think we're at like 120-ish right now.
So I would say that like the Fifth and Traverse this year will probably come into season. I think you could probably do it starting Independence Day, maybe like middle of July, and there'll be 2 passes, the Northeast Gully, which is the most technical part of the whole route, and then the Paiute Pass, and they're in a sequence where you'll want an ice axe and some crampons.
Okay,
but that's just the only 2 sections, and if that is kind of not your
I've done a little bit. I'm not the most experienced technical hiker, but I do have some experience self-arresting, so I should be able to do that.
Yeah, and it's pretty straightforward. I mean, it's just the Northeast Gullies, it gets full with snow and it's kind of steep. Like at the top, I think it's probably like 40, 45 degrees.
Okay.
But if you've got an ice axe, you can just self-belay yourself all the way down, just like jam that ice axe in, a couple steps down until it kind of starts leveling out, and then you can...
Cool. My heart rate just increased by 20%. The whole reason I started a podcast is so I could get free trip consulting. We're not actually recording right now. I'm curious, do you have any more questions about the high route thing before we move on from that?
Yeah, I mean, I could go forever, but we're good.
We could be here for a little while longer. Yeah.
That coffee must be strong.
It was the strongest.
What does your gear closet look like? Or is it a gear garage? Is it a warehouse?
It's kind of all over at this point. So I have, with the guided trips, I have a lot of demo gear. So for the most part, I run 2 concurrent trips at a time with group sizes of either 8 clients or 10 clients. And on the intro level trips, for the most part, anyone who wants a backpack or a sleeping bag or a stove, I can set them up, and it's a free program because the manufacturers send me the stuff. Pads, I do okay on. I'm a little thin, and then I also have like really generous discounts with Sear. Like I have 40% off coupon that it gets extended to my clients with Sear Designs and Ultimate Direction. And even like Mountain Laurel Designs even kicked in a discount, which you never get a discount with MLD. Yeah. So I have a lot of demo gear. So that's sort of depending on what the item is. It's either going to be in the garage or it's going to be downstairs, like hanging in a closet. And then I kind of separate out my personal gear just because I don't want like my Western mountaineering like Astrolite sleeping quilt being used for demo.
Makes sense.
Yeah. So I've got kind of some personal stuff.
See, we haven't even talked about the fact that you've written like probably the most popular gear book in the world. There's just the list of questions is too long. Talk about how did you get hooked in with the National Geographic Gear Guide? Is that what it's called?
It's the Ultimate Hiker's Gear Guide. It's published by National Geographic.
So was that parlayed from the fact that you were an Adventure of the Year?
Yeah. So I still have a relationship with National Geographic. So I was Adventure of the Year in 2007, and that. I was doing some events for like speaking at some expos that they were sponsoring, like 2008. And then when I decided to do my Alaska trip, I applied for an Expeditions Council grant, and they actually basically paid for the trip. And like in hindsight, I should have made my like whatever my budget was, I should have or at least add like a little fudge factor or something, because it was like, I mean, that's crazy. Like to do the whole Alaska Yukon expedition, I think it was like $11,000.
Damn.
Yeah, that's it.
That's crazy.
Wow.
Yeah, that was it. And then after the Expeditions Council, they were the natural partner to put together a gear guide. What's interesting about the gear guide is that, so this was 2010, and you're familiar with the affiliate world. Like, I actually wonder, like, if I didn't have the gear guide, like, and if it wasn't already published by National Geographic, and if they didn't already own the copyright, like, that probably just would have ended up as like free content online, because you could support it that way.
Sure.
I don't think you can never go wrong publishing a book that has that yellow collar around the cover, because that adds just a huge amount of credibility.
Sure. That's probably the most purchased gear book, period, right?
I'm going to assume so. I get a royalty statement every 6 months, and I think the last time I checked, it was over 100,000 copies.
Damn.
Yeah.
Wow.
But here's the thing. So 100,000 copies, but like,
right.
I get 100,000 visitors,
sure.
Like in way shorter than 6 months on the website.
Yeah.
So
it is a testament to how things are changing. With the content.
Yeah, it's really nuts.
Yeah. So the second edition,
if you put together a good YouTube video, you get 100,000.
Oh my gosh.
Like, even on like, this is great. So like so when I was working with Sear Designs, we put together a video series, like, kind of, I don't remember what the final number ended up being, but they're just more on like skills. So like there's a YouTube video where I go through my guideline system that I think has like 60,000 views. So like almost as many people have watched a YouTube video of me how to tie knots as have bought my book.
Yeah, but I think the engagement with a book is different.
It is different.
Yeah, like people may watch it half the video or whatever it might be. Yeah. There's something like romantic about the physical and taking notes.
And it's a holistic approach towards a topic.
Yeah,
it's 50,000 words about backpacking rather than like piecemeal articles.
Right.
Written by God knows who that are on the internet.
Exactly. And anyone can make a YouTube video.
Yes.
Not anyone can write a book for National Geographic.
Yeah.
So the the second edition came out, was 2 years ago?
2017.
Is there any plans for a third edition?
Not at this point. I still feel pretty good about where that's at.
Yeah.
So it was really interesting writing the second edition. So when I wrote the first, well, let me back up. The first edition was like very much a reflection of kind of that thru-hiker, definitely like that thru-hiker approach. And I didn't poo-poo other approaches, but it wasn't a super expansive perspective. When I rewrote the second edition, I'd been guiding, I think by that point I probably guided like 50 trips. It had, 300-400 clients come through my program. And I was very much in touch at that point with sort of the core audience for this type of book. Mm-hmm. And that gave me like way more perspective when I wrote the second edition.
Who is the core audience?
It's much more like average crowd. So it's actually not, your crowd per se.
Yeah.
I would say so if I look at, when I wrote the second edition of the Gear Guide, I wrote it for my guided trip clients. Mm-hmm. And those clients tend to be like 30 to 60 years old, 2/3 to 3/4 male. They tend to be above average fitness relative to their peers.
And one of the things I think of you when I think about gear is how much you hate rain gear, or how much you hate the state of rain gear. I've seen so many times that you've written about how much you hate Gore-Tex specifically.
Yeah. It's not that I hate Gore-Tex. I mean, the reality is like for waterproof breathable fabrics, Gore-Tex might be like the best fabric.
Yeah, it's just not. It's a perfect solution.
It's not. It's presented as this panacea. It's presented of like, oh, you should have Gore-Tex underwear. It's that good.
Yeah.
And I think people. So people pack their fears. They also buy based on fear. Mm. So they'll pack a 4-season tent in like Florida in July because they heard 30 years ago that there was a freak thunderstorm that
right.
Had 80-mile-an-hour winds.
Yeah.
Or they'll pack, someone's like, well, I don't like to be cold, and they pack a 0-degree sleeping bag for Colorado in July. Mm-hmm. Well, guess what? It's not probably going to even drop below 30. Mm-hmm. Or they're like, I don't want to starve, so they pack twice as much food as they want to. So they're packing their fears. They also buy their fears. So I think with waterproof breathables, like no one likes to be wet. No one likes to be wet. No one likes to have wet feet.
Yeah.
So that's why you see people buying waterproof breathables thinking like, well, it's guaranteed to keep me dry. And it's like, oh, well, waterproof footwear, so it'll keep my feet dry. Well, guess what? I don't know. Go hang out in wet weather for a day and let me know how it works.
Yeah, sure. Has there been any rain gear that's come out in the last couple of years that you've been impressed by?
Yeah, there actually is. So, I mean, you're still going to get wet if it's extended rain. I think a chief complaint of mine about rain gear for a while was that the technology was fundamentally flawed, and then it relied on durable water repellent finish to function properly. And durable water repellent DWR is not something that is that performs long term.
Right.
So that's why the fabric wets out and it stops beating. And once it wets out, I actually think that moisture can start coming through the membrane. It's not a one-way membrane. So basically the moisture is moving from an area where it's more humid to an area where it's less humid. If it's more humid outside the garment, based on that, because the fabric wets out, it's like totally saturated. Right. There's no reason why water can't start moving in. So that was kind of a chief complaint of mine, this DWR. And since then, there have been a couple of technologies, originally with Columbia with their OutDry Extreme, and then Gore-Tex now has a similar product where it's basically a membrane on the outside and there is no DWR finish. So it's like kind of I think Gore-Tex calls it permanently beading surface. Mm-hmm. And it's that definitely is like a step in the right direction.
Yeah. When OutDry first came onto my radar, all the applications they'd use it on were like very heavy rain jackets. Does that just go with the territory with the?
Well, it's a function of the fabric. So when they first came out, the fabric, it was pretty heavy. Like I've got a shell of theirs, and I use it for skiing and for hunting, but it's like a 14-ounce fabric, even though it's a pretty minimal jacket. They came out with a newer version maybe a year ago, maybe 2 years ago, and it's you're talking like now minimalist rain jackets with that fabric in like the 8-ounce range.
Wow.
Yeah,
that could be a game changer.
It is. But it's still a jacket, so it's not like it's actually wouldn't be my recommended system per se for if you think you're going to wear a rain jacket hiking in the rain in Shenandoah National Park in June, I got news for you.
Yeah. You're gonna sweat your ass off.
Yeah, you're gonna sweat your ass off. Like you're just gonna wet out one way or the other. Maybe I think when it comes to wet conditions, like you just have to accept emotion, like mentally, that you're going to get wet.
Yeah.
It's the key question is how to both like delay the onset of that wetness and then how to manage it after the fact.
Yeah. Well, also the worst of the wetness. So, like being wet in the middle of June is far less painful than being like wet in early March when it's like 40 degrees in like Franklin, North Carolina.
Yeah.
So is there a rain jacket that if you were hiking, again, I'm going to turn it back to my key audience.
Yeah.
If you were hiking northbound on the ATs, or what rain gear would you use?
I think probably go in there with two things. So I probably would go in there with a waterproof people jacket, but I probably would also go in there with an umbrella too. And just try to keep that moisture off you.
Yeah.
Just try to keep it off.
I've heard other people recommend that, but you don't see it too often on the AT.
Yeah, I think most people think they're like, well, I have a rain gear solution, that's enough. But I think in conditions like those, because an umbrella works really well on the AT. It's this really wide corridor. It doesn't work well if you're like off trail or if you're in like high winds or something.
Right.
So you could do that. You could also do maybe like a poncho and an umbrella. But I think just something to give you that sanity of like being able to put that thing up there and like, keep this 2 inches an hour rain off of you.
Right.
And then I would also definitely pair that up with a mid-layer fleece over your base layer shirt. And then I would underneath, you're looking at rain pants or maybe a rain skirt and like some pair of like leggings.
How do you feel about the hydrophobic down treatments? Is something like that suitable for the Appalachian Trail?
I think the hydrophobic down will give you some extra resistance to the humidity. So the issue with down, so everyone's like, well, you can't get down wet. Well, I'm not going to get my down bag wet. I've got it sealed in a trash compactor bag,
right.
That's totally sealed off. There's no way that moisture can get into this bag inside my backpack. But you use that sleeping bag all night, and you're literally sleeping in the clouds,
right?
Okay, like super high humidity, and that down just sort of absorbs the moisture, just the ambient humidity.
Yeah.
So I think water-resistant down can preserve, kind of stay intact longer. I think that if I were on the Appalachian Trail, I'd probably go with a water-resistant down sleeping bag, or a really high-quality down provider like a Western Mountaineering, and then also buy one that was 10 or 15 degrees warmer than I actually needed, knowing that it's going to be in a compromised state most of the time.
What about cleaning it with Nick Wax every month or so?
I don't no. I think if you really want to keep the key thing in constantly wet conditions, so like in Alaska, I do this all the time. It's the reset dry. So as soon as you get if it's been wet, and even for that matter, if it's just like you had a wet night, like some condensation on your shelter, well, that means probably all your other stuff is pretty damp.
Yeah.
At some point in the day, you're going to take a break, get everything out, spread it out, get it all dry, put it back in your pack. Now you're reset, and you can absorb another night of or several days of wet weather. But the key, you just have to stay on it, of constantly kind of keep be really diligent about keeping your stuff dry.
So when you say get it 10 to 15 degrees warmer, is that just because you're expecting that there'll be times where you can't get it completely dry?
Yeah, because you're you might have to endure 3-4 days of really wet.
Yeah.
Wet cold weather.
Oh,
when
yeah.
nothing is drying.
Yeah. What is that like for you then? If you're in 3 days of just solid rain?
Well, I don't hike on the Appalachians, so I have no idea. That's why
you hike so fast.
That's why I backpack in Colorado and California and Utah, and I mean even Alaska. I don't think is as generally wet as the Appalachians.
Yeah, we actually had a 48-hour rain spell in the winds when we went through on the CDT.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's totally normal. But what happened after 48 hours?
Yeah, okay.
The sun came out. So the sun came out, and you're at 11,000 feet, and it's this bluebird sky.
Yeah.
The sun is super intense, which is why I think it's hard to convey how intense the sun is at those elevations and out here where there's so little humidity in the air.
Yeah.
When I go back, so my wife and I will go back east sometimes in the summer to see my family, and we'll go to the beach, and it's the most bizarre thing to just see these people sitting out, laying on the beach, tanning, suntan lotion, just laying out, just sun, burn me. Because if you did that here in Colorado, or for that matter, even in here in Boulder or Denver, and then it'd be even worse if you're up at 10,000 feet. If you did that, you would look like a lobster in a half an hour.
You're talking to someone that's had skin cancer twice, so I'm preaching to the choir.
I had some. Well, I mean, yeah, and it's I had just had 2 pieces pulled off my back the other day.
Yeah,
and that was sun exposure from when I was a kid. And I know.
I asked Smiles the other day if she has any interest in hiking the AT. She's like, yeah, and then she's like, but first I want to hike, and then she listed probably 12 trails. She has other ambitions other than completing her Triple Crown.
Yeah.
What was the hike that you were most nervous before leaving for?
I think all of them have pushed me. I think before I've left for everyone, I've been anxious.
Okay.
Because, yes, if you look at it now, definitely by far the Alaska trip was...
That was my guess.
Yeah. But when I started the C2C trip, like given where my skill set was, my experience level, that was just as big of an undertaking.
Yeah, venturing into the unknown.
Yeah, and maybe the trip that I suffered the most on was definitely the Appalachian Trail.
Uh-huh.
That's saying something.
Well, it's just I didn't know anything. So I had no solutions to anything. Like I had no solutions to stay warm, no solutions for bugs, no solutions for wet feet, nothing.
Yeah.
Whereas at least like in Alaska, like I'm dealing with grizzly bears and horrific bugs, but I figured out how to deal with grizzly bears and nasty bugs on some other trip.
Yeah. Speaking of grizzly bears, you probably know what's coming next.
Probably.
The story where you made a grizzly shit itself.
Yeah.
Can you tell that?
Well, I mean, so your viewers can get on YouTube and watch the clip. But yeah, I was up in the Brooks Range. So I was like 4.5 months into a 6-month long trip, maybe even 5 months into a 6-month long trip. And I just had this like moment where it was I think it was like 2 a.m. I mean, just you hike whenever you want to there in still at like the end of July, beginning of August. I just had this moment, like you should look around for a second. And I turned, looked kind of left, looked right, and like out of the corner of my eye, when I turned right, I saw a grizzly bear like charging at me. So I kind of squared up to it and like yelled at it, and it came out of the brush, and it stopped. And it's like the very last step, it took like this kind of this slight right-hand turn. I was like, okay, I know how this is going to go down from here. So it like we kind of did this little stand down, and it ran off. Half hour later, I'm in the same valley, like another 1.5 miles up the valley, and I have again a similar moment. Like, just look around, and so I did the same thing, and this grizzly bear was charging across the river braids at me, like straight at me, and by the time I saw it, it was really close. It was probably I don't know, maybe 30 yards. I'm looking at the end of your building, probably 10 yards, 15 yards, like not enough time for me to like grab my bear spray, which is in my side pocket, pull the safety off.
Spray.
Yeah, I had bear spray.
Yeah.
So the thing would have been on top of me by the time. Yeah. So I threw my trekking pole at it. It was just like, because my trekking poles were in my hands. In order for me to get to my bear spray, I had to drop my trekking poles anyway. So
is this a scenario you'd played through in your head?
No, it was just totally natural. Yeah. So I threw my trekking pole at it, and just the trekking pole just landed right in front of this grizzly bear. And I was, of course, yelling at the top of my lungs. And this grizzly bear was like, I don't know what you are. I want nothing to do with you. So I made a right-hand turn and started running away. And as it ran away, it shit itself for like probably 10, 15 yards of just berry shit all the way down the gravel braids. So there's this great YouTube video. And of course, you have to put it all in context. Yeah. I hadn't seen anyone in like 2.5 weeks when that video was taken. And I look really like I'm on another planet, like emotionally at that point.
You do have to watch the video. It is pure emotion. Yeah. And you had one like quick line. I don't even know if you're trying to be funny, but it made me laugh. You're like, this bear shit itself. This bear shit itself. I have to go check my pants. So you mentioned that had been seen like 750,000 times. Is there a story out there? Is that
what that number is?
I think it's up to like 750,000. Yeah, it's pretty high. I
think I unsubscribed from those comments like 4 years ago because it was like similar. Well, it was similar to like the don't hang your food thing, where just like these uneducated commenters of like, oh, you should have had bear spray. Well, I did have bear spray. Or I don't believe it unless I see the grizzly bear. I'm like, yeah, because I make it up.
Yeah. Or there's red streaks on the ground.
And there's red berry. You're right. Yeah.
One more quick break, courtesy of our friends at Sigmatic. Sigmatic is a natural superfood company that specializes in mushroom-based drinks. I was originally turned on to Sigmatic a couple of years ago by my sister, who urged me to try Sigmatic's coffee with lion's mane and chaga, as she had received tangible energy and mood-enhancing benefits, above and beyond just her normal cup of joe. I've been a regular user ever since. Sigmatic mushroom coffee with lion's mane and chaga is one of my go-to morning beverages before a long day of work. The mushrooms used in Sigmatic's drinks are said to benefit everything from productivity, creativity, focus, and your immune system. I know what you're thinking. Mushroom coffee? That sounds disgusting. Well, I assure you, as someone who hates the taste of mushrooms, it's the only topping not allowed on my pizza, these beverages taste nothing like mushrooms. Their coffee products taste great, even the instant coffee, and this is coming from someone who typically detests instant coffee. Four Sigmatic makes a slew of awesome drinks aside from coffee, in case you're not a coffee drinker, caffeine consumer. I also really enjoy their hot chocolate, the chai latte, and the mushroom lemonade mix. And good news for Backpacker Radio listeners, that's you get a special offer. Receive 15% off your Four Sigmatic purchase by using discount code THETREK, all one word, lowercase, at checkout at their site, foursigmatic.com. If you feel so inclined, please use the link included in the show notes as we get a small kickback. Again, the discount code is THETREK, scores you 15% off. Back to the show. Okay, I know you said you've been generous with your time, but I don't want to be ridiculous.
We want to be generous with your listeners' time too.
The one question from a blogger that I got, what's it like? His name is Spencer Schrum. What's it like carrying around balls that big, and do you count them as worn weight?
Oh man. So here's the funny thing about like the audacity of some of those early trips. Like, you have to take things on like that. You have to be someone with nothing to lose. We talked about it earlier, practically speaking, it would be difficult for me to do like the Alaska Yukon expedition again.
Right.
But as much, it's like I'm now responsible to someone else.
Right.
And whereas when I was doing these trips, I wasn't, and I didn't want to die, but it also wasn't like, well, if I die, my wife is going to be a widow and she's going to like struggle to keep covering the mortgage.
It makes sense. And I also just think that like with maturity, like it's harder for me nowadays to be gone for half a year at a time. I like my creature comforts more now than I did at one point in my life.
I'm glad to hear you say that, because I feel like that's the case with me too.
Yeah.
Like I like having my own house. I like where my stuff is. Like, I've got a really comfortable bed, and it's I like driving my car.
Yeah. The idea of a 3 to 5 week trip sounds so much sexier to me than a 5 to 6 month trip. But I don't know. Yeah. I said that before, and I ended up hiking the PCTA.
Well, one thing on that. So I think I definitely would agree with that sentiment. And I think actually big thing for me is that I can't think of too many like 5 month long trips where I could like have the enjoyment factor be at the level I want. You just run out of terrain. So extreme. No, you run out of terrain.
I get it.
You'd have to make another route.
I think the only thing that I can think of that would like keep me occupied, like the longest thing that would keep me occupied is traversing the Brooks Range. That's like the only thing where I can think of it's like 1,000 miles, where you'll have like where I would love every second of it.
Yeah.
But like, how many other 1,000-mile things could I put together where at some point I'd be where it would be awesome the whole time? I can't think of too many things.
You've been honestly very generous with your time. I honestly have a lot more questions, but I don't.
Let's finish it.
Everyone listening to this, go to Andrew's website and buy a bunch of his stuff so we can ensure that we get him back on to finish off these questions some other time in the future. But so people should go to andrewskurka.com. You've got a bunch of guides. You're obviously guiding a lot of trips. Is there anything else that people should know about?
No, that's pretty good.
Okay, cool.
Thanks.
Smiles, is there anything else that you wanted to touch on?
No.
And by the way, for your listeners, like Smiles, her trail name is so good. Like every time I look over, she is smiling. It's just perfect.
Thank you for saying that, because we actually we talked about how she got her trail name, and to have you verify that.
Oh no, it's okay, perfect.
That's good.
And it's also like it wouldn't take you long to. I go, I think your trail name should be Smiles.
Yeah,
like, it wouldn't take someone very long to suggest that.
I gotta keep it now.
Yeah. Quick interlude to introduce a new segment that we didn't get a chance to feature during the show, but I certainly didn't want to put it off any longer. That segment is Thru-hiker of the Week. Truth be told, the idea behind this segment was meant to be largely in jest, to celebrate the odd, mundane, or hilarious feats of you guys and gals currently on the trail. The first edition, however, is the furthest thing from that. Our inaugural Thru-hiker of the Week is a guy who is genuinely deserving of the positive attention and praise. His name is Corey. He's known simply online as Second Chance Hiker. Corey is currently on the PCT with 2 goals in mind. 1, to thru-hike, and 2, to lose a massive amount of weight. He's got an infectious personality and a great YouTube channel with a passionate following. I've had probably a half dozen people flag his channel to me already, so it was only fitting that he was the first to feature in this series. I asked him to record a short bit to better introduce himself and his journey. Here it is.
Hey everybody, my name is Corey, and I'm also known as a Second Chance Hiker. So I started the Pacific Crest Trail January 30th at the Mexico border with a primary goal to drop 200 pounds, and the secondary goal is to make it all the way to Canada. Now, I really think I'm going to accomplish both goals by the end of the year. I'm just having so much fun out here. I just cannot see not finishing the PCT this year. I am definitely taking it really slow at first, and that was the plan. That's why I left in the middle of winter before everybody else did. And I'm just having so much fun, and there's a lot of water and a lot of snow right now. So yay for winter time. Another exciting thing, I was able to weigh myself for the first time since being on the trail about 10 days ago, and I'm down 35 pounds already. So yay, it's amazing. So hiking really does work for weight loss. So a lot of people do ask me what my backstory is and everything, and I could probably give you a million reasons why I'm out here, but I definitely wasn't happy in my previous life, and probably the biggest reason too is when I went to the doctor, she says, "You're 33, can we just run a bunch of tests on you?" And I'm like, okay, sure, let's just see what they all say. So I allowed them to run a bunch of tests and everything, and everything came back actually pretty awesome and good. And she's like, she said, well, at your age and everything, that's, you're doing great. But by the time in the next 10 years, you're really setting yourself up for a heart attack. It's more and more common, more people in their late 30s, 40s having heart attacks, and it's happening younger and younger every year. It's just becoming more common. And it really got me thinking that, wow, I do not want to die when I'm 10 years from now. I want to live, and I want to make a drastic change in my life. I actually want to have that happy, fun life that I've always dreamed of having. So instead of just sitting on the couch eating Pringles, I'm going to go out and I'm going to go make my life better. I'm going to work hard. I'm going to improve it. And I'm going to have the life I've always wanted to have. I really just also want to thank all the fans for the outpour of just amazing comments that they're just constantly inspiring me to get out there and keep working. And some of them are even making me cry. So thank you so much for all the love and support. And I love you all right back. I just feel amazing and incredible that I have this support army behind me that's pushing me on too. So just thank you to everybody. And I love you so much. And I hope everybody just has a beautiful day.
I will include a link to his channel in the show notes, or you can simply search Second Chance Hiker in YouTube. Definitely go give him a follow. His channel is awesome. For any other hikers currently on trail that want to nominate someone else or themselves, for those who are that courageously vain, send us a note at podcast@thetrek.co with the subject line Thru-hiker of the Week, letting us know why this person is deserving, and a link to any relevant media, photos, videos, etc. to verify this claim. Okay, back to your regularly scheduled programming. So I'm trimming some of the fat with this segments today. I usually do some Trek propaganda. I haven't even prepared any of that just because I knew that we'd get into so many questions with Andrew here. The one segment I do want to get to, are you able to stick around for the segment portion?
Yeah, I might have, my coffee is running through me, so I might have to
take a break.
Take an interim.
Yeah, no problem. So the one thing we do is it's the Triple Crown of series. And essentially, that's where we do a snake draft on a particular given topic. And I think it'll make sense as we go along. Today's subject, given your expertise, is we're going to do the Triple Crown of survival items.
Okay.
So the scenario is you're being dropped somewhere in like Castaway or Lost, an island like that. Let's say you're naked and you get to start picking items that you take with you to survive. And you can't take a boat or a plane.
Okay.
You're up first.
Okay. So I think the critical thing in a survival situation is you have some ability to make fire. So my go-to with making fire is a mini Bic lighter, which wouldn't be sustainable in a survival situation, so I might have to figure that one out. But the more interesting piece is a piece of Mylar food wrapper, like from an energy bar, which makes for a great fire starter.
Interesting. That's a good one.
Yeah.
Mine's going to be so bad.
Well, I mean, I'm actually really intrigued by survivalism. I think, but I mean, I guess a knife would be very useful for making all sorts of things.
Sure. Spear?
A spear, yeah. You could make a spear out of the knife.
I think a knife would be good. It's a good one.
I'm a goner in this scenario, so I'm going to go with alcohol. I at least want to go out enjoying my time. Maybe particularly vodka. I seem to agree well with that. Snake draft, I get to go second. You would have thought I've prepared for this, considering I came up with the segment idea. I'm going to go also with sunscreen.
Good.
I don't want to die of like boiling skin, and that would happen to me pretty quickly. And I don't think I could find. I wouldn't trust my ability to find reliable shade. I mean, it depends on the island, but I'm just going to bring it just to be safe. So that's mine. Alcohol and sunscreen.
Nice.
So you're up next.
Yeah. Oh,
Did I take any of yours, Andrew?
No.
I was thinking that I would really just probably need some chocolate because I don't know how long I could go.
That's a good one. That's
without.
a good one. I actually now have to revise my third choice.
I would like some writing paper and pen. Just something to mentally stay busy.
So this is not for like physical survival. This is to sate yourself psychologically. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know, volleyball. You can call Wilson and talk to him all the time.
Yeah, sure. Yeah,
just something to kind of keep that brain moving.
Yeah. Snake draft. So you get your last pick here.
So I need a second one. How about some ability to purify water? Of course, if you're on a deserted island, probably the water is probably pretty good. So no, I'm going to take that one back.
Okay.
How about? Oh boy.
Remember, alcohol's off the table.
I'm just totally drawing a blank here. How about a map? Can I do a map?
Yeah.
I'll go with a map. It's lame.
I wanted you to actually provide insightful survival skills because I knew I wasn't going to be able to pick up any slack there.
I was thinking some like decent shoes just to get around.
That's
better.
a good one. Similar to Smile's second pick, I'm going to go with a gun, and that's mostly just to take my own life when I realize that I've run out of alcohol. So that concludes today's show. I do want to give a big thank you to our Chuck Norris Award winners on Patreon. That's Michael W. Hinckley, S11N. I'm guessing Sean. I don't know. We still need some clarification from them. Sawyer Products and Travis Smith. You can keep up with us on social media at Backpacker Radio on Instagram, at Backpacker Pod on Twitter, Facebook.com/Backpacker Radio. You can keep up with Andrew on social. I see that you're on Instagram, right? Is it just at Andrew Skurka? At Andrew Skurka. And do you care about people following your Facebook page? Okay. And Smiles. Do you do the social thing?
I don't.
Okay. No social for Smiles. I'm at ZR Davis on Instagram and Twitter. And thank you very much. Happy hiking.
Here's what you do with cats. Back in the sweatshop at Nam, we found a cat. We tossed it right in the soup. Those hungry bastards ate cat soup every day. What's the worst thing that could happen? Some little kid choke on a hairball and die. So then you toss him in the soup. I was making money hand over foot. Literally. Somebody lost a hand or a foot, I toss it in the soup.